So today we're taking a look at Mezco's figure of Hela as she is depicted in Thor Ragnarok, in which she is portrayed by Cate Blanchett. Thor Ragnarok was released 2 years ago, so this figure is quite late to the party. Just to put things in perspective, within that 2 years, Marvel Legends has managed to release not one, but 2 figures of this version of Hela. And I have the second of those 2 figures, and I will bring it into the frame when I reach the point in this review at which I want to compare this figure of Hela to that one. So first things first, let's take a look at the articulation of this figure. Now it comes with 2 head sculpts. So in regard to the articulation of the head, it will vary depending on which head sculpt you have on the figure. So let's demonstrate the articulation of the head with the one that's on the figure now. You have a full 360-degree rotation. You can tilt the head to the sides quite a distance. You can tilt the head backwards and forwards quite a distance. However, when you put on this head, you just get it to snap on. Give me a second here. There we go. Now when you put on this head, which has this really large piece of hard plastic for the hair, you don't get much articulation, unfortunately. You can't turn her head to the sides very much. I mean, you do get some, range, but not nearly as much as you get with the other head. You can't tilt her head back much at all, really. And you can't tilt her head forward much at all, just a bit, but not too much. Actually, you do get quite a bit of tilt, but obviously not as much as with the other head. But the point is, overall, the articulation of this head is much less than that of the other one. So let me just take this off. By the way, this head depicts her with the hairstyle and facial expression that she has in the scene in which she grabs Thor's hammer and crushes it to pieces. But ironically, you can't really recreate that scene, that moment with this figure, because it doesn't come with Thor's hammer, unlike the figure by Marvel Legends, which I will introduce into the video in a few moments. So let's put this head sculpt back on. Now, as for the arms, you get full 360-degree rotation with the arms relative to the torso. That is, articulation at the shoulder joint, but it is hindered a bit by the fabric. As you can see, you wind up twisting the fabric up quite a bit, so you don't really want to do that. Let me just put this shoulder strap back into its little socket back here. I don't even know why this figure has these removable shoulder straps. Kind of strange, but whatever. Now, if you want to bend the arm upward, you can, but you have to do that by twisting the arm at the shoulder, about 180 degrees, and then you bend it up. Then when you want to bend it back down, you twist it back to its default position and then bend it back down. So you get quite a bit of articulation at the shoulder joint. As for the articulation at the elbow, you can bend the arm 90 degrees, not more than that, so you can't really depict her flexing her bicep, so to speak, but that's not something that I don't think anyone would want to do with this figure. That's not something in accord with her characterization in the movie, so I don't see that as a drawback. Now, as for articulation at the wrist, you can turn the hand at the wrist 360 degrees, so you get quite a bit of articulation. And you can bend her hand inward, but you do have to make sure that the hand is positioned correctly relative to the joint. There we go. So you can bend her hand, quite a ways, rather nice. So you get some really good articulation, on the arm, at the shoulder, elbow, and at the wrist. So let's check out the articulation of the torso. At the midsection, now you can twist her at the midsection a full 360 degrees, but you encounter some resistance with the fabric, which is understandable. So that's not something that you actually want to do. You might wind up tearing the fabric, so just keep that in mind. Now, you don't get much articulation at the waist. You get just a bit, but not too much. Now, as for articulation at the hips, you can bend her leg upward, not a full 90 degrees, but pretty close, pretty close. You can bend her leg forward a full 90 degrees. You can bend her knee a full 90 degrees. You have ankle pivot. In fact, you have full rotation of the ankle, or should I say full rotation of the foot at the ankle, which is rather nice. You can bend her leg not too far backward, unfortunately. So the articulation is quite limited in that regard. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the articulation. You have some pretty good articulation overall, I would say. I'm personally satisfied with it. So let me just stand her up. All right, there we go. Now she comes with let me back her up. She comes with one extra set of hands, a second extra set of hands, and a third extra set of hands. So she has a total of 3 extra sets of hands, one of which, as you can see, depicts her holding the 2 swords that she holds in that scene in which she first appears and prepares to attack Thor and Loki, but then they escape via the Bifrost. So yeah, you can sort of recreate that moment in the movie. Very nice. Now, as for the height of this figure is 6 inches and 1/4 of an inch tall. And if you were to scale that up, in accord with, a 1/12 scale, that would be the equivalent of 6 feet 3 inches tall. So you could say that this figure is taller than it should be, because Cate Blanchett is only 5 feet 9 inches tall. It should actually be 5 inches and 3/4 of an inch tall. So it's a bit taller than it should be. But it seems to me that a lot of these figures that are advertised as being in 1/12 scale are actually either too short or too tall relative to what they should be in that scale. So let's bring in the figure by Marvel Legends. Here it is. This is the second of the 2 figures of this version of Hela, released by Marvel Legends. I don't have the first one. This one came in a 2-pack with Scourge, who's over here, by the way. Now, this figure, it's actually even taller than it should be, relative to the one by Mezco. This figure is a flat 7 inches tall, which is way too tall. If you were to blow that up to an actual height, with the idea that this is a 1/12 scale figure in mind, that would blow up to 7 feet tall, and obviously that's much taller than Cate Blanchett. So yeah, this figure is definitely too tall. However, if you were to consider this to be a 1/10 scale figure, it's actually pretty much spot on in terms of height. Maybe it's a bit too tall than it should be, but it's pretty much as tall as it should be for a figure of this version of Hela in 1/10 scale. So I personally see this as a 1/10 scale figure. In fact, give me a moment. I have this figure of Thor as depicted in Thor Ragnarok by Marvel Select, which is a sub-brand of Diamond Select. And as you can see, this figure by Marvel Legends matches up pretty well with it. So yeah, I would say she's definitely suited for 1/10 scale, because this is a 1/10 scale figure, this figure of Thor by Marvel Select. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Marvel Legends figure of Hela as depicted in Thor Ragnarok is a 1/10 scale figure. That's pretty much how I look at it. So let me just put him back. So how do I think the Mezco stacks up relative to this one by Marvel Legends? I actually like the Mezco more. It just seems much more realistic in terms of the body sculpt, the shape of her body. This one here, it's a nice figure, don't get me wrong, I love this figure, but it just doesn't look as natural in terms of the body sculpt. It looks much more, rigid and obviously, mechanical, because it just has these lankier limbs and just this less natural contour to the body. It doesn't quite look realistic, and it certainly doesn't look accurate in terms of the shape of Cate Blanchett, in the movie when she's wearing the costume, and portraying Hela. So, yeah, that's my opinion. But don't get me wrong, I love this figure. I love that it comes with this sculpt of Thor's hammer so that you can recreate the scene in which she catches Thor's hammer, stops it in its tracks, so to speak, and then crushes it to pieces. Very nice. And I love that it comes with a cape, unlike the one by Mezco, which is pretty unfortunate. I don't know why Mezco didn't include a cape with this one. They could have at least included a simple cloth cape, but they chose to forego a cape altogether. Very strange. Yeah, as for the articulation of this Marvel Legends, it's quite good. It's quite good. You can, turn her arms a full 360 degrees at the shoulder. You have pretty good bend at the elbow. Not a full 90 degrees, but pretty close. Obviously, you can rotate the hands at the wrist a full 360 degrees. You can turn the hands inward at the wrist. Very nice. There we go. A bit stiff there. We don't have, let me take the cape off. You have a bit of articulation on the upper part of the torso. Very nice. I'm pretty sure if I put enough force, I can turn it a full 360 degrees, but it doesn't feel as if it's meant to do that, so I'm not going to do that. We don't have any rotation at the hips, unfortunately, but we do have rotation at the thighs. Pretty much all Marvel Legends figures have rotation at the thighs. We can turn her leg up a full 90 degrees. We can't turn it back at all. We can bend the knee a full 90 degrees. Oops. We don't have ankle pivot, but we can, well, at least not to the sides. We don't have lateral ankle pivot, but we can, bend the foot upward and downward. So pretty good articulation overall. I'm satisfied. So let me just get her cape back on. Might be a bit difficult with this hair. Whatever. I don't think it's on securely, but this hair will keep it in place. So let me just stand her to the side. Come on, Kate, don't give me a problem here. There we go. Yeah. Come on, there we go. So yeah, overall I'm pretty satisfied with both of these figures of Hela, one by Mezco and one by Marvel Legends. I think they're both great, but I like the Mezco much more because, as I said, it just looks more accurate and more realistic. I like the fact that it uses soft goods for the costume. It just looks much more natural and accurate. I can't do anything but praise this figure. The only downside is that it doesn't come with a cape, and it doesn't come with a sculpt of Thor's hammer to recreate that pretty amazing scene in which she crushes Thor's hammer to pieces. But overall, it's a fantastic figure. It's scaled more accurately, but not exactly. It is a bit too tall. It should be a bit shorter. But I'm guessing Mezco wanted to give people, a bang for their buck in terms of how much plastic they're getting, right? People might have thought that it were too small if it were made, to be the accurate height in 1/12 scale. But, I'm fine with the fact that they made it a bit taller than it should be in 1/12 scale, because it's still appropriately short relative to other characters that appear in the movie. In the movie she's shorter than Scourge, and therefore, it's satisfying that she is indeed shorter than this figure of Scourge, which I like. She's pretty much shorter than all of the male characters in Thor Ragnarok, and subsequently, I don't mind the fact that she's a bit taller than she should be in 1/12 scale, because she's still shorter than the characters whom she is actually shorter than in the movie. Is she shorter than Jeff Goldblum? No. But she should be much shorter than Jeff Goldblum, but the problem isn't with her, it's with this figure of Jeff Goldblum, or should I say this figure of Grandmaster. Jeff Goldblum is 6'4", so, this figure should be about as tall as this figure here, or maybe a bit taller, because Chris Hemsworth is 6'3", but whatever. So overall, I'm satisfied. This has been my review of Mezco's figure of Hela as she is depicted in Thor Ragnarok. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Guys, by the way, there are a few things that I forgot to show you guys in the review. Marvel Legends figure of Hela actually comes with quite a few more accessories besides its sculpt of Thor's hammer. It comes with 2 extra head sculpts, one that depicts her with the elaborate headdress, another that depicts her with her hair slicked back and that therefore shows more of her face. Let me give you a better look at this one as well. Should have brought it closer to the camera in the first place. It also comes with an extra spare hand to grip this axe that she forges with her magical powers in the movie. I believe this is the axe that she forges and then gives to Scourge, but don't quote me on that. And it also comes with this effects piece that you wrap around her wrist/hand to depict her, I don't know, generating energy. Doesn't seem like anything she does in the movie, though. I forgot to include this guy in the review. I wanted to put him in the background, or should I say I should have put him in the background, but I forgot to do so. This is a Marvel Legends figure of Korg. Very cool. So anyhow, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please be sure to leave some comments below and tell me what you think.